All right, everybody, we're into the last week, like physical week, I guess, on the calendar of the Solo Sesh-A-Thon, and we only have 3 days left, including today. And before we get into it at all, I'm going to give a special birthday shout out to my brother Joel. Joel, happy birthday. I don't know if you'll watch this or not, but happy birthday. All right, so in the last two sessions, the last time I recorded, they were in these barrow mounds, and they left having kind of determined the just kind of the state of everything that everything had been in, how these barrow mounds got here. They have a journal from one of the brothers, the brother who actually buried the rest of his brothers, and he passed away and locked himself inside of this tomb for himself. And so the party walked out with some good stuff, but they kind of decided, okay, we're only going with one for now, and let's just go ahead and press on, trying to make it to the Mushroom Village. So the next day, or not even the next day, this was just the second half of that day, they're journeying, and it starts out, and they start by checking on Yankee because he's gone down again for I don't know, the sixth or seventh time probably. And I just rolled to see how he was doing, and I rolled a nat 20. And so, I asked, is Yankee okay? And so when it comes to critical successes or fails, when you ask an oracle, it's the most extreme version possible. So that gave me something to think about, because is he doing okay? Yes, but how is he doing super okay? And the I just wrote that the most recent brush has given him so much confidence in the party. He still wishes to resolve his issues with how hardy he is, but he is doing great, just knowing that they are there for him. And that's an interesting thing that the dice gave me. And so then I was rolling some encounters, and a very interesting one came up. And in the table, so I rolled an encounter, and I rolled a 69 on the die on the swamp table. And so I went and looked, and just as a refresher, the party is going from this village down here of New Light. They've traveled up around the west coast here. They've made it into this swamp area with the barrow mounds. So they're only a few days away now. But as they were leaving this hex, I rolled an encounter, and there were 14 goblins drag a rotund hill giant on a makeshift sled, and they're far away. And so I asked if they spot the party, and it was yes, but they don't draw weapons or do anything like that. And so on the prompt table, I rolled, and the noun didn't really make sense, but the verb was allow, and I thought that was interesting. And so one of these goblins runs over and he says, "Hey, my name is Broad Shoulders." And then I also asked, or not asked, I just said he doesn't have broad shoulders. What are you doing in the swamp? And then he's addressing Yankee, who's also a goblin. And Yankee fills him in that they're passing through to visit a landmark in the northeast. So Broad Shoulders jogs back over, talks to the giant, and then comes back and says, Big Bones says that you can stay in the village if you want. And then I said, do they stay? And the party is extremely hesitant, but Nelsor chimes in and just says, yeah, of course we'll stay. So they're all a little bit uneasy. There's this hill giant, there's these goblins, and then they start following behind them. And they eventually make it to this this entrance to like a cavern, and that's pretty much where I left it off. And then yesterday, I didn't have much time. I didn't even roll a single die. Actually, I did. I rolled a digital d20 at one point for this, but I just quickly described this town. I didn't build it out. I didn't do anything crazy. But I used a random, like a goblin town name generator, and I got the town name of Salt Hollow, and I just thought that sounded so cool and like something that could inspire a really cool, like, just brief stop off, because I'm not trying to like have them go start another adventure necessarily, but it's a nice place for them to develop a potential relationship with someone, or have a new place on the map that they can visit and potentially get something from. So Salt Hollow is here, and so do more than just goblins live here? Yes, but it's mostly goblins. 300 individuals inhabit the village, built within the mountain bordering the swamp, and the buildings are carved into the salt within the cave. And so why are they here? The salt provides healing properties. Why is Big Bones the leader? Because he protected the people from a swamp hydra. And then what is unique, a unique attraction or location just within the village? And I wrote down the Blood Lake. Not actually blood, it's just colored that way because of the minerals. And bathing in the pool is said to have is said to be a magical experience. So we're about to pick up with them going into this city. I don't know exactly. Like, it's kind of the end of this day, so I don't know if I will just roleplay a little bit of them in the city then, and then the next morning before they leave, or what. But we will see. Okay, so let's do it. I should have written this down before, but session 36. That's crazy for me to think about, because like I'll get into this more, I think, when I do like a retrospective on this month, but it's so cool to see just how far I've come in this month of gameplay, because I was only able to play a handful of sessions before, but those sessions were much longer, closer to like 2.5 hours sometimes. And so some of them were shorter, but it's just so cool to think of how like in depth I've been able to go by playing like kind of a day at a time, or in some cases like half a day, or just describing a setting. So we're in session 36. We'll say edge of 105. The day is still the 12th of adventuring year 2, and I'm not going to write an intro. So the party shows up at this cavernous entrance, and they give the goblin procession in front of them like a heads up, like, hey, we need to talk for a second. We'll be in just a minute. So they all huddle up, and I think right away they all look at Nelsor and they're like, hey dude, what are you doing, man? Why are you just volunteering us to stay at this place? We don't know anything about these people. We don't know if this is a trap. We don't know if this could derail us. We could be taken into captivity and held as hostages. And then Nelsor just looks at them and he says, well, I have a good feeling. Like, I feel like they wouldn't have invited us if it wasn't a good thing. And so the party kind of looks at him, gives him like you're being really naive. And then they kind of look at each other and they just say like, hey, should we bolt now? And they all come to the agreement that they'll see it through. They'll go inside, and if anything feels sketchy at all, they're fighting their way out, and they'll just make a break for it. So the initial entrance here is, I think it's pretty rough, like the floor is kind of smoothed out from people traveling across it, but most everything else in here is like very jagged walls, like it doesn't look like it's been shaped at all. So they're like looking at it, they're wondering, how could people live here? But deep in the distance, they can see light and they can hear people talking and music playing, different things like that. So they begin to press into this passageway, following behind these goblins and their giant leader. And so, side note, you can hear the clopping of hooves as they walk down the entrance into Salt Hollow, and the clopping is Mr. Carrots, and I created him a nice little card. I don't know. I don't think they're like beasts of burden, like stat blocks, or like how much they would typically be able to hold. But I figure a mule probably has a strength of 14, so I'm just gonna, like, anything they gather on this, they're gonna just load up on Mr. Carrots if they need to. I should probably add some more things to here, like rations. That's what I was gonna say, like rations, extra torches, things like that. So it makes sense, and I can kind of use Mr. Carrots as Nelsor's inventory as well, some of his extra stuff. So it's not just like I'm trying to like cheat the system. But I think that this makes sense, and especially when I'm not managing my own inventory, I'm managing everybody's inventory. I think that you can get lost in that, and like the fun of the game can kind of disappear. But I got Mr. Carrots now, so he's right there. So the party begins to push in, and then after a while they see, like, they can catch the glimpse of, I'm going to say that this is like white salt. It's not like Himalayan pink salt or anything. It's so it's a very it's like a stark white area. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in one before, but I've been in a salt room before, and it was a very interesting experience. My eyes felt like they were burning for a while, like just because there's salt kind of in the air. But salt rooms do have they have I guess saying healing properties is like, it sounds very mystical, but they are said, it's like a remedy for different things to go to a salt room. And so you see, like, as a party enters in, like, their eyes start burning. They start feeling like they're breathing in like salty air. And I think this is probably a little disorienting for them, but even more disorienting, I think, is probably the beautiful nature of this place. As they walk in, as they begin to look around, there's staircases built into the salt. There are small buildings that are like etched in, and like there's some other structures here that aren't salt, that are like wood or built out of stone from outside. But I think that as they enter in, they see, like, I'll say that there's like a central kind of, I guess I'll draw it out. As they enter in, there's like a central pillar that rises up, and we'll say it's got almost like a bundt cake kind of look to it as it like kind of arches out. There's stairs that wrap up around this thing, and it's not a perfect bundt cake shape, but it's gonna look like that because I'm drawing it. And then this is the entrance right here. But as they look at it, there's like a small stream that kind of feeds in to a large body of water over here that they see, and it looks blood red, and so they're a little bit caught off guard by that. But everybody as they walk in is like really really thankful to see them, really grateful to have visitors. So like they come out and they start offering up like frog legs and just different you see like different beads, like necklaces get brought over and put on them, and it seems like they're really putting a really good foot forward to welcome them into this place. And I'll say that Yankee in Goblinoid talks to one of these goblins and just says, "Hey, what's that over there, like the red water?" And the goblin says, "Oh, it's the blood lake." And Yankee kind of like tenses up, and then the goblin can see that he's tense and says, "Oh, it's not real blood. It's not real blood. It's just like it's a place that we go to relax, and one of the reasons that a lot of the people moved here is because they suffered from different ailments. And since being here, we've the majority of us have been healed." And so at hearing that, Yankee relays that to the rest of the party, and they're all interested, especially Nelsor, just at what all that implies. And so they begin to journey around. And I'll say that also, just because I've always loved architecture like this, where it's like you have a first floor of something and then like a bridge that kind of spans the top. There's stuff like that, little staircases that rise up to the tops of buildings. You walk up, then you can walk across the staircase, get over here. There's like another staircase that kind of rises up to another area over here. And sorry, got to turn the volume off of that computer. And so there's just like, there's goblins moving everywhere. There's like a few, we'll say like a few orcs or something. And then maybe we have like a few gnomes in here as well. And you can see they're working on like cutting out a little passage over here where they've been sort of mining into the wall. And so the party goes in, and let's just see. I've gone ahead and determined like the goblins and the giant actually were kind of suspicious of the party, but having brought them here now, I think that that's kind of subsided. But I'm going to roll on the prompt just to see maybe what's going on in here, or if there's anything that we can interact with after I write the word lake, so it doesn't just say the blood. The blood lake. There are more buildings than just this as well. Whatever. I'll go ahead and draw some so it doesn't look so barren. And there's like 300 people here, so I do believe that there's probably some like multi-storied buildings in here that that inhabit more people, and probably built up around and inside of this central pillar. It's probably like the largest grouping of them. So let's see. We got 968. So 9 is imbue. 68 is kindness. The word imbue is strange here because when I think of imbuing, I personally think of like giving something like magical powers, or like bestowing upon something, which I guess you can. I feel like imbuing, though, usually has to do with putting it into an item or a thing. So let me think about that for a second. Imbue kindness. I think that, let me actually look at this really quick. Imbue kindness. Maybe that's just one of the properties of the salt. So the party, as they enter in, they begin to notice just like the general cheerful nature of everyone else. And then they begin to notice that in themselves as well. They're smiling a little bit more. They're interacting with people in like not a vastly different way, but a different enough way to where they can tell that that they're feeling different, I guess, especially Ulfric. Ulfric is like being a little extra cheery, and Yankee kind of looks at him and is like, "Hey man, are you okay?" And Ulfric says, yeah, I'm great. I feel really good. And so after a while, Big Bones comes over to them, and he's a hill giant, so he stomps over, and he says, I would like for you all to meet someone. And so the party says, okay, yeah, sure. Who is it? What's this about? And he kind of steps to the side and he gestures down at this small, frail goblin woman. And she's adorned in like animal skulls and different things. She has a staff that's got little trinkets hanging off of it. And she walks up, and I don't have a name for her, but let's see. We'll go with we'll do this little name generator over here. 6 is Hill. 9 Hillen. 5 Hillens. Hillenziel. Hillenziel. That sounds like a wild name. Hillenziel is the goblin shaman. I spelled shaman wrong. Don't judge me. So Hillenziel steps forward, and she kind of feels around at the party, like literally comes over and starts touching them and like muttering things out loud in just a no real language. Like the party looks to Yankee and they're like, hey, is she saying something in goblinoid? He just shakes his head no. And she's just saying all these things, and then she finishes up and she says, follow me, and turns and just begins walking away. And so the party hesitantly look at each other for a second, and then they begin to follow her. And she walks around this way, and she walks to a little shack that's built out of blocks of salt. And inside there are weird baubles and trinkets hanging around, and she has like a very tiny bed that's just on the ground. And more importantly, she has a very large cabinet that's filled with all kinds of herbs and spices and just random things just tucked away in there. And as she walks over and she begins grabbing some things, and she turns around and looks at them and she says, take off your clothes. And the party is all like, what are you talking about? Like, Ulfric says, I won't be doing that. And she says, you will be doing that. And he kind of thinks about it for a second. He's like, why? Why will I be doing that? And she says, because then you can get the healing properties. And so he he thinks about it for a second, and then he looks over, and Nelsor is completely disrobed. He's down to like some underwear, and Yankee follows suit. Then Eliara and Ulfric do the same, and they're all just standing there in their underwear. And she comes over, and she starts rubbing this like these herbs and spices and different things on them. Like they're getting actually dirty from this stuff that she's putting all over them. And they just look at each other so confused until she eventually says, all right, now go bathe yourselves. And she shoos them out of her little hut and points over at the water. And it's this deep crimson red. And they're all weird and hesitant about it. But then Big Bones is he's standing by, and he says, the red is from the minerals in the water. You will be fine. And so the party goes, and they get inside of it, and they sit there for a second, and then I think Ulfric, actually we'll see. 1 is Ulfric, 2 is Yankee, 3 is Eliara, 4 is Nelsor. Nelsor is the first one who has like an audible and visible reaction to this, as he like lets out a little bit of a surprised sound, like a yelp almost, and he sits up straighter in the water, and he says, oh, my back feels much better. He like kind of slumps forward slightly, and you can hear like all of these pops and crackles from his spine just kind of like finally loosening up. And he looks around at the other people, at the other members of the party, and he's like, just let it happen. This is amazing. And he turns and he kind of like wades over to the shore, and he leans over and he starts talking to the goblin shaman Hilinziel, and he's having this conversation, and the party look at each other, and they're like, do you feel anything? Like, do you feel any different? And they're sitting here for a while, and then one by one they all start to just kind of feel rejuvenated, feel a little bit stronger and more hardy, and they're having this experience here. And I actually hadn't thought about this up until this point, honestly. With the fact that the goblin shaman was here, I think that we're going to have Yankee kind of talk with her. But I think that the blood lake is actually going to give a permanent +1 to, or like boost one of these stats by 1 for each party member. So what I'll do is I'll roll a d6 going down the line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for each of them, and see what we get. So we'll start with Eliara first. So she's sitting there, she's soaking in this water, and 6 charisma. Oh my gosh, she's got a straight up 4 in that. She is not likable, I guess. I don't know. But this isn't going to be anything. I don't think I can give her like a +2 to the skill. Okay, I will say this. If it's a negative, I'll give it a +2 so it can just bump it up. Not that it changes a whole lot. But what this looks like is she's sitting there, and she kind of leans over to Ulfric, and she says, I'm sorry for that thing I said to you the other day. The one about your toenails. I feel like that was a bit uncalled for. And he looks at her, and he kind of like seems confused, and then he says, "This water's changing you, isn't it?" And then we'll roll for Yankee. And 5 is wisdom. So instead of going up by +2, because I think that might be a little bit broken, we'll do it to 15. Although 15 might actually take him up to 15 might take him to the have a +3 in that. I'm not sure. I need to. It doesn't. It's still +2, but that's fine. He kind of brightens up, and he looks in the water, and he swirls it around a bit, and he like says a quick prayer to Madeira, and just feels enlightened a little bit more, and he lets the party know that that he feels it too. And Ulfric is sitting there. He's kind of doubting it, kind of muttering under his breath. And then he gets a boost to his wisdom as well, going from a 13 to a 14, which makes that a +2 modifier now. And the party just like sit there, and they're all having this chat with each other, kind of enjoying it. They find a little sunken in spot in this salty water, and they sit in there like it's a hot tub and kind of just keep talking. And then Nelsor, after a while, calls over and says, Yankee, come here really quick. And so Yankee gets up, kind of wades over through the water, and he says, yeah, what's up? And Nelsor says, Helenziel was just, obviously we're all feeling the effects of this water, so I came over and I started talking with her, and just mentioned that your situation with your hardiness, and she says that she might have something for you, but there's a chance it won't work. And Yankee says, oh well, I mean, I would love to hear what she has to say. And so Helenziel kind of sends Nelsor away, and it's just Yankee and this frail old goblin woman, and she looks at him and she says, this may not work, but I think that you need to experience something maybe deep within yourself. Maybe take a trip, a journey within, to find those things that are holding that constitution of yours back, to that are making you maybe even feel subconsciously like weak-willed. And Yankee kind of feels a little bit bad about that, because he's like, well, I've never thought about it as my will being weak, I guess. But then he says, well, what is it that I would need to do? And she gestures over to a little, just a little stack of bricks, and of not bricks, of salt bricks. And she says, well, we would need to put you in there for the night and kind of smoke you out a little bit. And he says, what do you mean when you say smoke me out? And she walks him over. She just hands him a towel. He gets out. They walk along this like, I also envision the floor as like this slick salt brick that's been smoothed from people walking across it. And she goes over, and there's a small, like, think of it like almost like an outhouse. And she says it will be uncomfortable. There's a chance that if this doesn't take, that it would leave you weakened and could potentially cause you all to maybe have to stay a little longer. But if it works, you could significantly grow in your ability to withstand things from a mental fortitude place. And so he looks at it. There's a small door, and he kind of slides in and like looks around, and he says, "Well, okay, what do you mean when you say smoke me out, though? Like, I need to know that." And she says, "Well, I would mix together a concoction of herbs," and she gestures to a small hole that's in the bottom of this building, this little structure. And she says, "And then I would send the smoke in through here, and throughout the night you would inhale it." And he looks at her and he says, "Is it safe? Like, I don't know that I want to do this if there's any possibility of harm." And she just says that it would take it out of him if he doesn't succeed, and that if that happens, that it would probably take about a week to recover. And so he thinks about it, and he says, "Well, let me talk to my friends, and I'll get back with you." Yankee makes his way over to the party in the water, and he just asks them really quick, "Hey, what do you guys think about this?" And they mull it over for a while, and with the potential of it being a 7-day layover here, in the worst case scenario, they decide they will put it up for a vote. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll with advantage, because I do think they care about Yankee. And I'll roll for each of them. Nelsor goes ahead and says, "I'm fine with whatever. This place is super interesting to me and a very fun place, so I'm okay with staying." And so we'll roll with, see if Ulfric says yes or no with advantage. Yes, but, and no, but. So yes, but. And then for Eliara, yes, oh, and no, but. So Ulfric says yes, but if this does happen, or if we do have some kind of a layover of whatever kind, I may go ahead and scout. And the party's kind of hesitant about this, but they all go to the shaman, and they go ahead and ask her, like, "Hey, what are the odds that this will be successful?" And so she says, "There are good odds that it will be successful. It really depends on Yankee's fortitude." And so they all agree. And that night, Yankee goes into this little hut, and the process begins, and he has kind of an internal vision where he begins to see his life playing out, seeing how it would have been different if he had not gone down in a situation, and how important it is that he stays up and stays in the fight. And so he's watching all of this unfold. And we're going to do a wisdom check, and we'll roll it flat, and it's not going to be okay. What we're going to do is we're going to do 4 different ones. So it will be kind of a check throughout the night, and if he passes over, he needs to pass 3 of them, and if he passes, it lowers the DC for the others. So the very first one is going to be a difficult DC of, or hard DC of 15, and with his wisdom, that is a +2, and if he succeeds, it'll go down to a 12, and then if he succeeds, it'll go down to a 9. So on this first one, he begins seeing these things, and how does he handle it? Not well. The very first one, he fails. So I actually I think we're going 5. The next one, he fails. The next one, he fails. Okay, let's see. This will kind of determine if he's able to. He may not get the full benefits, I don't think, but he would need to pass the next 2 to kind of just put himself in a decent spot where he's not completely taken out. Nope, that doesn't. I pulled one off earlier, so we're going back. 14 plus his wisdom. That succeeds. Okay, so he needs this one. This is a 12 now. And I think that this won't get a full effect really at this point. 19, that was so close. If that was a 20, it would have been perfect. So he really clutches up at the end, and the next morning he comes out, and he looks a bit more hardy, but not nearly as much as he could have been. And so what I'm going to do is, for the 2 successes, I'm going to roll... I don't know about 2d6. That seems like a lot, potentially. Okay, what we're going to do, a d6 is his hit die. So he's had the chance to roll 3 more. What we're going to do is we're going to roll 3, and then we're going to half that. And then he's going to get that much HP. Okay. But I think that he could have potentially gotten like the full amount from it. But that's not going to be happening. Wow, 4s all around. So that's 12. So that'll be rounded down to 6 HP that Yankee is going to gain, which nearly doubles his HP max, which was 7. So 13 HP now. And he comes out, and I think that that's where we'll end the session. Definitely a much more role play heavy session, but I like this. I like the town of Salt Hollow. It's just a cool place where people have come, and it's a different kind of community where they're all there, kind of like, it's almost like a big hospital, I guess. But anyway, Yankee has some extra HP. The party has some extra stats now, and I think we will, going forward, have the party will continue their journey to the Mushroom Village up here, and they've only got a few days left. I also put Salt Hollow in the wrong hex, so I'm gonna go back in there and change that because it is 103, not 105. Oh wait, it's also a safe hex. That's poetic. I love that. So, Salt Hollow. All right. Well, that's day 28. Thanks for joining me, and I will talk to you guys later.